Have you ever wondered why some nights you sleep peacefully while others leave you restless, as if invisible forces were disturbing your rest? Have you noticed that certain homes radiate an inexplicable peace while others seem heavy with spiritual oppression? What if I told you that the answer to transforming your nights and protecting your family lies in something so simple that millions overlook it every single day? Tonight, Pope Leo XIV reveals one of the most powerful spiritual practices that the Church has guarded for centuries, a practice so transformative that it can literally change the spiritual atmosphere of your bedroom and your entire life. If you've been struggling with nightmares, insomnia, spiritual attacks, or simply feeling unprotected during the night, you need to hear this message before it's too late. The revelation I'm about to share with you comes directly from the teachings of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV, the first American pope in the history of the Catholic Church, a man chosen by divine providence in these challenging times to lead us through spiritual darkness toward the light of Christ. What you're about to discover are not mere suggestions, but 5 profound spiritual reasons why sleeping with the Rosary under your pillow can transform your nights from battlefields into sanctuaries. Before we continue, if you believe in the power of the Rosary and trust in the wisdom of Pope Leo XV, write in the comments, "Holy Mary, protect my sleep." This simple act of faith will be the first step toward the spiritual transformation that has been waiting for you. Who is Pope Leo XIV, and why should his words carry such weight in our spiritual lives? Robert Francis Prevost, now known to the world as Pope Leo XIV, was elected on May 8, 2025, becoming not only the first American pope but also the first from the Order of St. Augustine to occupy the throne of Peter. His journey to the papacy was marked by decades of missionary work in Peru, where he witnessed firsthand the spiritual battles that ordinary families face every night. During his years as a missionary in the remote regions of Peru, Father Prevost, as he was known then, encountered families living in profound spiritual turmoil, children who couldn't sleep, parents tormented by nightmares, homes where darkness seemed to reign even during daylight hours. It was during these experiences that he discovered the ancient practice that would later become one of his most important teachings as Pope Leo XIV. In a small village in Chulucanas, Peru, he met an elderly woman named Maria Esperanza, who, despite living in extreme poverty, radiated a peace that was almost tangible. Her small adobe house, with its dirt floor and makeshift furniture, felt more peaceful than many cathedrals he had visited. When he asked her secret, she smiled and led him to her bedroom, where under her worn pillow lay a simple wooden rosary, polished smooth by decades of use. "Father," she told him, "my grandmother taught me this when I was just a child. Every night before sleeping, I place my rosary under my pillow. I have never had a sleepless night due to fear, never been tormented by evil dreams, and never felt alone in the darkness. The Mother of God watches over my sleep through her blessed beads." This encounter would plant a seed in the future Pope's heart that would grow over the decades. As he continued his missionary work and later his ecclesiastical career, Pope Leo XV began studying this practice more deeply, consulting ancient church texts, speaking with mystics and saints, and most importantly, witnessing the transformations in the lives of those who embraced this simple yet powerful spiritual discipline. When he was elevated to cardinal and later elected pope, one of his first private audiences was with a group of sleep researchers from the Vatican's Scientific Committee. What they shared with him was astonishing. Families who practiced sleeping with the Rosary under their pillows showed markedly different sleep patterns, reduced nightmare frequency, and reported higher levels of peace and spiritual protection. But Pope Leo XIV's interest in this practice goes beyond mere scientific curiosity. During his first papal audience, he revealed something that sent shockwaves through the Catholic world. In these times of spiritual warfare, when the forces of darkness seem to grow stronger each day, God has given us weapons of light. The Rosary is not just a prayer, it is a spiritual weapon. And when we sleep with it under our pillow, we are literally placing ourselves under the protective mantle of the Blessed Virgin Mary. The practice of sleeping with the Rosary under the pillow is not new. It has roots that stretch back centuries in Catholic tradition. Saints like Padre Pio, Saint John Bosco, and Saint Thérèse of Lisieux all spoke about the importance of maintaining spiritual connection even during sleep. However, it was Pope Leo XIV who systematized this teaching, revealing the 5 specific spiritual reasons why this practice is essential for every Catholic family in our modern age. Think about it for a moment. We spend approximately 1/3 of our lives sleeping. That's 8 hours every day when our conscious mind is at rest, when our spiritual defenses are lowered, when we are most vulnerable to negative influences. The ancient church fathers understood this vulnerability, which is why they developed practices to ensure that even our sleeping hours were protected by divine grace. Pope Leo XIV often explains this concept using a powerful analogy. Imagine your bedroom as a fortress. During the day, you are the vigilant guard, aware of what enters and exits. But at night, when sleep takes you, who guards the fortress? This is where the Rosary under your pillow becomes your spiritual sentinel, a guardian appointed by heaven itself to watch over your rest. The spiritual significance of this practice becomes even more profound when we understand the theological foundations behind it. The Rosary, blessed by church authority, carries within its beads centuries of prayers, devotions, and mystical experiences. Each Ave Maria prayed with that Rosary, each mystery contemplated, each moment of devotion leaves a spiritual imprint on those sacred beads. When we place this reservoir of spiritual energy under our pillow, we are creating what Pope Leo XIV calls a sanctuary of sleep. The pillow, which supports our head, the seat of our thoughts, dreams, and spiritual receptivity, becomes infused with the protective presence of Our Lady. It's as if we are literally resting our minds on a foundation of prayer and divine protection. But here's what most people don't understand. This practice isn't automatic. It's not enough to simply place any Rosary under your pillow and expect miracles. Pope Leo XIV has revealed specific conditions that must be met for this practice to be fully effective. The Rosary must be blessed, it must be used regularly for prayer, and most importantly, it must be placed with faith and proper intention. During his recent general audience, Pope Leo XIV shared a moving testimony. A mother from Brazil wrote to me saying that after years of her child suffering from night terrors, she began placing her grandmother's Rosary under the child's pillow. Within a week, the nightmares stopped, but more than that, the child began sleeping peacefully and waking with joy. When I read her letter, I wept, knowing that heaven had once again confirmed the power of this ancient practice. The timing of this revelation is not coincidental. Pope Leo XIV believes that we are living in times of unprecedented spiritual warfare. Modern technology, while beneficial in many ways, has opened doors to influences that previous generations never faced. Social media, violent entertainment, and the constant bombardment of negative news create a spiritual environment that can follow us even into our bedrooms. The bedroom should be a sanctuary, Pope Leo XIV teaches, but too often it becomes an extension of the world's chaos. We bring our phones to bed, fall asleep to the television, and wonder why our rest is not restorative. The Rosary under the pillow is God's antidote to this modern spiritual pollution. As we delve deeper into this teaching, it's important to understand that Pope Leo XIV is not advocating for superstition or magical thinking. Rather, he is revealing a practice rooted in deep theological truth, the communion of saints, the power of blessed objects, and the maternal protection of the Blessed Virgin Mary. When we sleep with the Rosary under our pillow, we are participating in a spiritual reality that transcends the physical world. The 5 reasons that Pope Leo XIV will reveal are not just theoretical concepts, they are practical, life-changing truths that have transformed the nights and lives of countless faithful around the world. Each reason addresses a specific aspect of our spiritual life during sleep: protection from evil, enhancement of dreams, spiritual healing, family blessing, and preparation for death. But before we explore these profound reasons, we must first understand the grave error that millions of Catholics are committing every night without realizing it. An error so subtle yet so spiritually dangerous that it may be the very thing preventing you from experiencing the peace and protection that God desires for your life. The silent error that Pope Leo XIV has identified affects millions of Catholic families worldwide. Yet most remain completely unaware of its devastating spiritual consequences. This error is so common, so seemingly innocent, that even the most devout Catholics commit it nightly without a second thought. What is this grave mistake? It is the error of sleeping spiritually defenseless. Every night, as darkness falls and the world grows quiet, countless souls lay their heads on pillows devoid of spiritual protection. They sleep without any sacred object near them, without any connection to the heavenly realm, without any spiritual armor to guard their most vulnerable hours. Pope Leo XIV calls this spiritual nakedness during sleep, and he warns that it leaves souls exposed to influences that can affect not just their rest, but their entire spiritual life. Think about this carefully. You would never leave your home unlocked at night, yet how many of us leave our souls unlocked during the 8 hours when we are most defenseless? You wouldn't walk through a dangerous neighborhood without protection, yet we enter the realm of sleep, where our conscious defenses are down, completely unguarded spiritually. During his years as a missionary, Pope Leo XIV witnessed the consequences of this error repeatedly. He tells the story of a family in Lima who came to him desperate for help. For months, their teenage daughter had been experiencing terrifying nightmares. Their young son had developed a fear of darkness so intense he refused to sleep alone. And the parents themselves were suffering from chronic insomnia and unexplained anxiety during the night. I visited their home, Pope Leo XIV recalls, and immediately noticed something troubling. While their living room displayed beautiful religious images and their kitchen had a small shrine to the Sacred Heart, their bedrooms were completely devoid of any spiritual presence. No crosses, no holy images, no blessed objects. They had unconsciously created spiritually neutral zones in the very places where they were most vulnerable. Now, this family's experience illustrates what Pope Leo XIV identifies as the first consequence of sleeping without spiritual protection: vulnerability to spiritual attack. While this might sound dramatic to modern ears, the Church has always taught that we exist in a reality where spiritual forces, both good and evil, are constantly at work. During sleep, when our conscious minds cannot discern or resist negative influences, we become particularly susceptible to what the Church calls spiritual oppression. But the consequences extend far beyond nightmares and sleep disturbances. Pope Leo XIV has identified 5 major spiritual problems that result from this seemingly innocent error. The first consequence is what he calls dream contamination. Our dreams, according to Church teaching, are not merely random neural activity. They are a realm where our souls are particularly open to spiritual influence. Saints throughout history have received visions and divine messages through dreams, but the opposite is also true. Negative spiritual forces can use this same pathway to plant seeds of fear, doubt, and spiritual confusion. I have counseled countless souls who describe dreams filled with violence, sexual impurity, or despair, Pope Leo XIV explains. While not every disturbing dream indicates spiritual attack, when these become patterns, when they begin affecting our waking spiritual life, we must consider that our sleep may be under assault. The Rosary under the pillow acts as a filter, purifying the spiritual atmosphere around our dreams. The second consequence is the gradual erosion of spiritual sensitivity. Pope Leo XIV teaches that just as our bodies need rest to function properly, our souls need spiritually protected rest to maintain their connection to the divine. When we consistently sleep without spiritual protection, our souls become increasingly dull to heavenly influences. A woman from Mexico City wrote to Pope Leo XIV, describing this exact phenomenon. "Your Holiness, I used to feel so close to God during my prayers. I could sense the presence of the Blessed Mother during my Rosary. But gradually, over several years, this sensitivity faded. Prayer became mechanical, Mass felt routine, and I began to wonder if God was even real. It wasn't until I began sleeping with my Rosary under my pillow that this spiritual sensitivity returned. It was as if my soul had been slowly suffocating and could finally breathe again." The third consequence is what Pope Leo XIV terms spiritual fatigue. Undi, this manifests as waking up tired despite adequate sleep, feeling spiritually drained throughout the day, and experiencing a persistent sense of disconnection from God. Many people attribute this to stress, poor diet, or lack of exercise, never considering that their spiritual life might be under attack during their sleep. Dr. Maria Santos, a Catholic psychiatrist who works closely with the Vatican, explains, "We see patients who present with symptoms that medical science cannot fully explain: chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety, and sleep disorders that resist conventional treatment. When these patients begin incorporating blessed objects into their sleep environment, particularly the Rosary under the pillow, we often see remarkable improvements that cannot be attributed to placebo effect alone." The fourth consequence is the phenomenon of spiritual isolation during sleep. Pope Leo XIV teaches that sleep should be a time when our souls draw closer to God, when the distractions of the day fade and we can rest in divine peace. However, when we sleep without spiritual protection, we inadvertently cut ourselves off from this heavenly connection. Sleep should be a preview of heavenly rest, Pope Leo XIV often says. When we wake feeling anxious, depressed, or spiritually empty, it indicates that our sleep has been separated from God's presence. The Rosary under the pillow maintains that divine connection even when our conscious minds are at rest. The fifth and perhaps most serious consequence is what the Pope calls generational spiritual vulnerability. When parents consistently sleep without spiritual protection, they unconsciously model spiritual defenselessness to their children. The spiritual atmosphere of the home becomes compromised, and negative influences can establish footholds that affect the entire family for generations. Pope Leo XIV shares a particularly striking example. A grandfather in the Philippines wrote to me about his family's struggle with what seemed to be a generational curse. For 3 generations, the men in his family had suffered from alcoholism, violence, and early death. When he began sleeping with the Rosary under his pillow and taught his sons and grandsons to do the same, this pattern began to break. His grandson, who had been heading down the same destructive path, experienced a profound conversion and is now studying for the priesthood. But why do so many Catholics, even devout ones, commit this error? Pope Leo XIII identifies several reasons. First is simple ignorance. Many have never been taught about the spiritual significance of sleep or the power of blessed objects during rest. Second is the influence of modern materialism, which dismisses spiritual realities as superstition. Third is spiritual pride, the unconscious belief that we are strong enough to handle spiritual challenges on our own. Pride is particularly dangerous in this area, Pope Leo XIV warns. Some Catholics think that needing spiritual protection during sleep shows weakness of faith. This is precisely backwards. The greatest saints were those who understood their need for constant divine protection. Humility recognizes our vulnerability. Pride exposes us to spiritual danger. There's also the issue of spiritual neglect. Many Catholics who would never miss Sunday Mass or forget their morning prayers give no thought to their spiritual state during sleep. They treat bedtime as purely physical, ignoring the spiritual dimensions of rest and dreams. Pope Leo XIV often encounters Catholics who say, "But I pray before bed. Isn't that enough?" While bedtime prayers are certainly important, he explains that they are like locking the front door while leaving the windows open. The rosary under the pillow is like installing a complete security system that guards your sleep throughout the night. The consequences of this error become particularly evident in families with children. Pope Leo XIV has received hundreds of letters from parents describing children who resist bedtime, experience frequent nightmares, or wake up inexplicably fearful or upset. In many cases, these problems resolve quickly when parents begin placing a blessed rosary under the child's pillow. Children are naturally more sensitive to spiritual influences, the Pope explains. Their souls are less encumbered by worldly concerns and more open to both heavenly and hellish influences. When we fail to protect their sleep spiritually, we leave them defenseless against forces they are too young to understand or resist. One of the most heartbreaking testimonies Pope Leo XIV received came from a mother in Brazil. "Holy Father, my 8-year-old daughter began having nightmares so severe that she was afraid to sleep. She would stay awake for days at a time, and when exhaustion finally overtook her, she would wake screaming. Doctors found nothing wrong. Psychologists suggested therapy. But when my mother-in-law suggested placing a rosary under her pillow, I was desperate enough to try anything. The very first night she slept peacefully. It has been 6 months now, and the nightmares have never returned." The error of sleeping without spiritual protection also manifests in marital relationships. Pope Leo XIV has observed that couples who sleep without blessed objects in their bedroom often struggle with increased conflict, decreased intimacy, and a general sense of spiritual disconnection in their marriage. The marriage bed should be a place of blessing and unity, he teaches. When it lacks spiritual protection, it becomes vulnerable to influences that can drive spouses apart rather than draw them together. The rosary under the pillow blesses not just individual sleep, but the sacred bond of marriage itself. Perhaps most tragically, this error can affect our preparation for death. Church teaching has always emphasized the importance of a good death, dying in a state of grace, surrounded by spiritual support, ready for divine judgment. Pope Leo XIV points out that if we consistently sleep without spiritual protection throughout our lives, we risk being unprepared for that final sleep. Death often comes during sleep, he observes. Those who have cultivated the habit of spiritually protected rest are better prepared for that ultimate transition. The rosary under the pillow is not just protection for earthly sleep, it's preparation for eternal rest. The error of sleeping spiritually defenseless is so subtle because it requires no action. It's an error of omission rather than commission. We don't actively choose to expose ourselves to spiritual danger. We simply fail to take the protective measures that Catholic tradition has always provided. Pope Leo XIV emphasizes that recognizing this error is not meant to induce fear, but to inspire protective action. God does not want his children to live in terror, he assures us. Rather, he provides us with simple, powerful means of protection. The rosary under the pillow is one of his greatest gifts for our spiritual safety during sleep. Now that we understand the gravity of this silent error and its consequences, we are ready to discover the powerful solution that Pope Leo XIV offers. The 5 profound reasons why sleeping with the rosary under your pillow can transform your nights from vulnerabilities into victories, from spiritual battlegrounds into sanctuaries of divine peace. Now that we understand the spiritual danger of sleeping defenseless, Pope Leo XIV reveals the profound solution that has been transforming lives across the globe. The practice of sleeping with the rosary under your pillow is not merely a pious custom. It is a powerful spiritual weapon that addresses each of the vulnerabilities we've discussed. His Holiness has identified 5 specific reasons why this ancient practice is essential for every Catholic seeking spiritual protection and divine blessing during sleep. The first reason: creation of a spiritual sanctuary. Pope Leo XIV teaches that when you place a blessed rosary under your pillow, you are literally consecrating your sleep space as a sanctuary of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Your bedroom becomes an extension of her Immaculate Heart, he explains. Just as the Holy House of Loreto became a place of pilgrimage because of Mary's presence, your bed becomes a sacred space under her maternal protection. This transformation occurs through what the Church calls sacramental efficacy, the power of blessed objects to transmit grace. When a rosary is properly blessed by a priest, it becomes a conduit for divine protection. Placing it under your pillow creates what Pope Leo XIV describes as a hemisphere of blessing that extends approximately 3 feet in all directions from the rosary itself. Dr. Father Miguel Rodriguez, a theologian who works closely with Pope Leo XIV, explains the spiritual mechanics. The Blessed Rosary emits what we might call spiritual frequency, waves of divine grace that purify the atmosphere around it. During sleep, when our souls are most receptive, this grace penetrates our entire being, creating a protective barrier against negative influences. To properly implement this first reason, Pope Leo XIV provides specific instructions. Begin by ensuring your rosary has been blessed by a priest. If you're uncertain, take it to your parish and request a blessing. The blessing prayer specifically invokes the protection of the Blessed Virgin Mary and asks that the rosary become an instrument of divine grace. Next, prepare your sleeping space with intention. Pope Leo XIV recommends a simple ceremony each evening. Before placing the rosary under your pillow, hold it in your hands and pray, "Blessed Mother, I place my sleep under your maternal protection. Guard my dreams, purify my rest, and let your presence fill this sacred space." The placement itself is significant. The rosary should be positioned directly under the center of your pillow, where your head will rest. This creates the most direct connection between the spiritual protection and your mind, the seat of consciousness, dreams, and spiritual receptivity. The second reason: continuous prayer during sleep. One of the most profound aspects of this practice is how it extends our prayer life into the unconscious hours. Pope Leo XIV reveals that when we sleep with the rosary under our pillow, our souls continue to pray even while our conscious minds rest. Prayer is not merely a mental activity, His Holiness explains. It is a state of being, a spiritual posture of the soul. When you sleep with the rosary under your pillow, your soul remains in communion with the Blessed Mother throughout the night. It's as if she is praying with you and for you during every moment of sleep. This concept is rooted in mystical theology. Saints like John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila wrote about the soul's ability to maintain union with God even during sleep. The rosary under the pillow serves as an anchor for this mystical connection, ensuring that the soul remains oriented toward heaven even when consciousness is suspended. Sister Maria Consolata, a mystic from Italy who has had private audiences with Pope Leo XIV, describes her experience. "When I began sleeping with my rosary under my pillow, I noticed that I would often wake with the words of the Hail Mary on my lips. Sometimes I would awaken to find myself making the sign of the cross. It was as if my soul had been praying all night while my body rested." Pope Leo XIV provides a practical way to enhance this continuous prayer. Before sleep, pray one complete rosary while holding the beads that will rest under your pillow. This charges the rosary with your conscious prayer intentions, creating a spiritual momentum that continues throughout the night. The third reason: protection from spiritual attack. Perhaps the most immediately practical reason Pope Leo XIV offers is the Rosary's power to protect against spiritual attacks during sleep. Modern life, with its constant exposure to negative media, violent entertainment and spiritual confusion, makes us particularly vulnerable to what the Church calls oppression of spirit during our most defenseless hours. The devil is most active when we are least conscious, Pope Leo XIV warns. Scripture tells us he prowls like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Sleep is often when he strikes, through nightmares, spiritual oppression, and the planting of seeds of fear and doubt in our unconscious minds. The rosary under the pillow acts as what Pope Leo XIV calls a spiritual firewall. Just as computer firewalls protect against digital viruses, the Blessed Rosary protects against spiritual contamination. The continuous presence of this sacred object creates an environment that negative forces cannot penetrate. A dramatic testimony comes from Father Carlos Mendoza, a priest from Colombia who specializes in spiritual counseling. I have worked with individuals suffering from severe spiritual oppression, people experiencing demonic nightmares, sleep paralysis, and inexplicable terror during the night. In every case where they committed to sleeping with a Blessed Rosary under their pillow, these attacks ceased within days. The transformation is so consistent that I now recommend this practice to anyone experiencing spiritual disturbances during sleep. Pope Leo XIV emphasizes that this protection extends beyond dramatic supernatural encounters to the more subtle forms of spiritual attack that most people experience. Persistent negative thoughts upon waking, feelings of spiritual heaviness in the morning, and a general sense of disconnection from God that seems to worsen after sleep. The fourth reason, healing and restoration. The fourth reason Pope Leo XIV offers relates to the Rosary's power to facilitate healing during sleep. Medical science has long recognized that sleep is when the body performs its most critical healing processes. But Pope Leo XIV reveals that spiritual healing also occurs most effectively during rest, when the soul is free from the distractions and tensions of conscious life. Sleep should restore not just the body but the soul, His Holiness teaches. When we sleep with the Rosary under our pillow, we open ourselves to the healing power of Our Lady's intercession. Physical ailments, emotional wounds, and spiritual injuries can all experience divine healing during these blessed hours of rest. This healing occurs through what theologians call the maternal touch of Mary. Just as a mother's presence can comfort and heal a sick child, the spiritual presence of the Blessed Mother through the Rosary brings comfort and restoration to souls in need of healing. Pope Leo XIV shares a remarkable testimony from a woman in Poland. After years of struggling with depression that seemed to worsen at night, she began sleeping with her grandmother's rosary under her pillow. Within 2 weeks, she began waking with a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. After 2 months, her depression had lifted entirely. Her doctor was amazed, as no changes had been made to her medication or therapy. To maximize the healing potential of this practice, Pope Leo XIV recommends offering specific intentions before sleep. Place your hand on the pillow where the rosary rests and pray, "Blessed Mother, I place my wounded heart under your healing touch. Through your intercession, restore what has been broken in my body, mind, and spirit." The fifth reason, preparation for eternal sleep. The final reason Pope Leo XIV offers is perhaps the most profound. Sleeping with the rosary under your pillow prepares the soul for the ultimate sleep, death itself. This practice cultivates what the Church calls a good death, dying in a state of grace, surrounded by spiritual protection and ready for divine judgment. Every night's sleep is a rehearsal for death, Pope Leo XIV explains. When we consistently place ourselves under Mary's protection during sleep, we are preparing our souls for that final moment when we will need her intercession most. She who was present at the death of her Son becomes present at our own passage from this life to the next. This preparation occurs gradually as the soul becomes accustomed to resting in divine protection. People who maintain this practice often report decreased anxiety about death, increased peace about eternal matters, and a growing sense of spiritual readiness for whatever lies ahead. Pope Leo XIV shares the story of an elderly man from Ireland. He began sleeping with the Rosary under his pillow at age 75 after his wife passed away. For 15 years, he maintained this practice faithfully. When he died at 90, his daughter found him in his bed with a peaceful expression, the Rosary in his hands, and a smile on his face. The nurse who attended him said she had never seen such a peaceful death. Implementing the practice. Pope Leo XIV's complete method. To help the faithful implement this practice effectively, Pope Leo XIV has developed a complete method that maximizes the spiritual benefits. Evening preparation. Before retiring, spend 5 minutes in prayer with your rosary. This doesn't need to be a complete rosary. Even 1 decade prayed with deep intention will suffice. The goal is to activate the spiritual connection between you and the blessed beads. Bedroom blessing. Once a week, sprinkle holy water in the corners of your bedroom while praying. Blessed Trinity, make this room a sanctuary of peace. Blessed Mother, guard my sleep with your maternal love. Proper placement. The rosary should rest flat under the center of your pillow. If you have a large rosary, you may fold it gently, but ensure the crucifix remains visible if you partially lift the pillow. Morning gratitude. Upon waking, place your hand briefly on the pillow and pray. Thank you, Blessed Mother, for watching over my sleep. Help me carry your peace into this new day. Weekly renewal. Every Sunday, remove the rosary from under your pillow and pray with it during the day, renewing its connection to your conscious spiritual life. Pope Leo XIV also addresses common concerns about this practice. Some worry about wearing out their rosary or damaging it under the pillow. He responds, "A rosary used for spiritual protection will never wear out spiritually, even if the physical materials show signs of use. In fact, a rosary that has absorbed months or years of blessed sleep becomes even more spiritually potent." Others worry about traveling or sleeping away from home. Pope Leo XIV advises, bring your rosary with you wherever you sleep. The practice travels with the practitioner. Hotel rooms, guest bedrooms, even hospital beds can become sanctuaries when blessed with this practice. For families with children, Pope Leo XIV has special guidance. Place a small, child-safe rosary under each child's pillow. Teach them that their guardian angel and the Blessed Mother are watching over them through these blessed beads. Children often experience the effects most immediately because their souls are less cluttered with worldly concerns. Special considerations for different life situations. Pope Leo XIV recognizes that various life circumstances require adaptations of this practice. For married couples, he recommends that each spouse have their own rosary under their respective sides of the pillow. This creates a double blessing over the marriage bed, he explains, and ensures that both souls receive individual protection while blessing the union itself. For those in religious life, the practice takes on additional meaning as a sign of total consecration to Mary. Religious sisters and brothers who sleep with the rosary under their pillow are living their vows even during sleep, Pope Leo XIV notes. For the sick or elderly, this practice becomes particularly important as a source of comfort and preparation. When the body is weak, the soul needs extra protection, the Pope teaches. The rosary under the pillow provides this protection while offering hope for healing or peaceful passage. These 5 reasons, sanctuary creation, continuous prayer, spiritual protection, healing facilitation, and death preparation, work together to transform the simple act of sleep into a profound spiritual practice. When implemented with faith and consistency, this ancient custom becomes a cornerstone of a truly Catholic approach to rest and renewal. As we move toward understanding the full benefits and transformational power of this practice, remember that Pope Leo XIV is offering us not just a spiritual technique, but a complete transformation of how we approach 1/3 of our lives. This is the beauty of authentic Catholic spirituality. It sanctifies every aspect of human existence, including our most vulnerable and unconscious hours. The transformation that occurs when faithful Catholics embrace Pope Leo XIV's teaching about sleeping with the Rosary under the pillow extends far beyond improved sleep. His Holiness has documented profound changes that ripple through every aspect of life: spiritual, emotional, physical, and even material. These benefits are not merely anecdotal. They represent a systematic transformation that occurs when we align our most vulnerable hours with divine protection. Immediate spiritual benefits. The first benefits most people experience occur within the spiritual realm, often manifesting within days of beginning this practice. Pope Leo XIV describes these as first fruits of the soul's newfound protection during sleep. Enhanced prayer life stands as the most commonly reported benefit. Father Giuseppe Romano, who works closely with Pope Leo XIV in documenting these transformations, explains, "We consistently see believers report that their prayer becomes more focused, more heartfelt, and more effective after they begin sleeping with the Rosary under their pillow. It's as if the continuous spiritual connection during sleep spills over into their conscious prayer time." Maria Fernandez from Spain wrote to Pope Leo XIV, "Holy Father, I had been struggling with distraction during prayer for years. My mind would wander, and I felt like my prayers were just empty words. After 3 weeks of sleeping with my Rosary under my pillow, I noticed a profound change. During my morning prayers, I felt the presence of the Blessed Mother so strongly that I wept with joy. My prayers had become conversations rather than recitations." Increased spiritual sensitivity represents another immediate benefit. Catholics who practice this discipline often report heightened awareness of God's presence throughout the day, increased ability to discern spiritual influences, and greater sensitivity to the sacred during Mass and other liturgical celebrations. Pope Leo XIV shares the testimony of a young seminarian. "Before this practice, I attended Mass out of obligation. The rituals felt distant and formal. After sleeping with the Rosary under my pillow for just 2 weeks, everything changed. I began to sense the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist so powerfully that I sometimes trembled during communion. The sacred became tangible in a way I had never experienced." Emotional and psychological transformation. The emotional benefits of this practice often surprise people with their depth and consistency. Pope Leo XIV explains that when our sleep is spiritually protected, our emotional life becomes more stable and resilient. Decreased anxiety emerges as one of the most significant benefits. Dr. Patricia Gomez, a Catholic psychologist who has studied this phenomenon, reports, "Patients who begin sleeping with a Blessed Rosary under their pillow show measurable decreases in general anxiety, sleep anxiety, and anticipatory worry. The effects are particularly pronounced in anxiety that seems to worsen at night or upon waking." James Mitchell from Australia describes his transformation. "I had suffered from anxiety attacks for 15 years, particularly severe ones that would wake me at 3 a.m., filled with dread about the upcoming day. Traditional therapy helped somewhat, but the nighttime anxiety persisted. After my priest suggested sleeping with the Rosary under my pillow, these episodes decreased dramatically. Within 2 months, they had stopped entirely. I now wake feeling peaceful and ready to face whatever challenges the day may bring." Enhanced emotional resilience becomes evident as practitioners report better ability to handle daily stresses, decreased reactivity to negative situations, and improved emotional regulation throughout the day. Pope Leo XIV received a particularly moving letter from a widow in Ireland. After my husband's death, grief consumed me so completely that I couldn't function. Simple tasks felt overwhelming, and I had lost all hope for the future. My sister-in-law, remembering our grandmother's devotion, suggested I sleep with the rosary under my pillow. The change was gradual but profound. The crushing weight of grief lifted, replaced by a gentle sadness mixed with peace. I began to feel my husband's presence not as a painful absence, but as a loving memory that brought comfort rather than despair. Physical health improvements. While Pope Leo XIV emphasizes that the rosary is not a medical treatment, he has documented numerous cases of physical health improvements that accompany this spiritual practice. These improvements often occur alongside spiritual and emotional healing, suggesting a holistic restoration that addresses the person's entire being. Improved sleep quality stands as the most immediate physical benefit. Sleep studies conducted at Catholic hospitals have shown that people practicing this discipline experience deeper REM sleep, fewer sleep interruptions, and more restorative rest patterns. Dr. Antonio Silva, a sleep specialist at a Catholic medical center in Brazil, reports, "We've observed remarkable improvements in sleep architecture among patients who sleep with blessed objects, particularly rosaries near their heads. The improvements cannot be explained by placebo effect alone, as they persist even when patients are unaware they're being monitored." Relief from chronic conditions represents another documented benefit. While these improvements should never replace proper medical care, Pope Leo XIV has received numerous testimonies of people experiencing relief from conditions that had resisted traditional treatment. Catherine O'Brien from Canada wrote, "Holy Father, I had suffered from chronic migraines for 20 years. Despite trying every treatment available, I was still experiencing severe headaches 3 to 4 times per week. After beginning to sleep with my grandmother's rosary under my pillow, my migraines decreased in both frequency and intensity. After 6 months, I now have maybe 1 mild headache per month. My doctor is amazed and has no medical explanation for the improvement." Family and relationship blessings. One of the most beautiful aspects of this practice is how its benefits extend to entire families and communities. Pope Leo XIV teaches that when one family member sleeps under Mary's protection, the blessing radiates to affect all relationships within the household. Marital harmony improves significantly in couples where one or both spouses practice this discipline. Marriage counselors working within Catholic family service organizations report that couples who embrace this practice show decreased conflict, improved communication, and renewed spiritual intimacy. Father Michael Thompson, who specializes in marriage counseling, observes couples who sleep with rosaries under their pillows report feeling more patient with each other, more willing to forgive, and more inclined to pray together. The practice seems to soften hearts and open souls to the grace needed for successful marriage. Children's behavior and well-being show marked improvement in families where this practice is embraced. Parents report that children sleep better, experience fewer nightmares, show increased obedience, and demonstrate greater spiritual openness. Rosa Martinez from Mexico shares, "My 7-year-old son had been having behavioral problems at school and terrible nightmares at home. After placing a small rosary under his pillow, both issues resolved within weeks. His teacher asked what had changed because he had become calm, focused, and kind to his classmates. At home, he began asking to pray with us before meals and bedtime." Community and apostolic effects. The transformation extends beyond individual families to entire communities. Pope Leo XIV has observed that when this practice spreads through parishes, neighborhoods, and friend groups, the spiritual atmosphere of entire areas begins to change. Increased parish participation becomes evident as people who embrace this practice often become more involved in church activities, more generous in their giving, and more committed to living their faith publicly. Father Luis Rodriguez reports from his parish in Ecuador, "After I preached about Pope Leo XIV's teaching on sleeping with the rosary under the pillow, something remarkable happened. Not only did people begin this practice, but our parish experienced a spiritual renewal. Mass attendance increased, confession lines grew longer, and our charity work expanded. It was as if the entire community had awakened to a deeper spiritual reality." Enhanced evangelization efforts emerge naturally as practitioners become more confident in sharing their faith. The peace and joy that result from this practice make people natural evangelizers who attract others to Catholic teaching through their transformed lives. Material and professional blessings. While Pope Leo XIV cautions against viewing this practice as a means to material gain, he acknowledges that spiritual transformation often leads to improvements in worldly circumstances. These benefits flow naturally from the increased wisdom, peace, and spiritual discernment that result from protected sleep. Professional success often improves as practitioners report better decision-making abilities, improved relationships with colleagues, and increased creativity and productivity. Michael Foster, a businessman from England, testifies, "I had been struggling with major business decisions that were keeping me awake at night. After beginning to sleep with the rosary under my pillow, I not only slept better, but began to see solutions to problems that had seemed impossible. My business turned around dramatically, and I attribute this to the clarity and peace that came from spiritually protected sleep. Financial stability improves in families that embrace this practice, often through unexpected opportunities, better financial decision-making, and increased generosity that somehow leads to greater abundance." Long-term spiritual maturation. The most profound benefits of sleeping with the rosary under the pillow become evident over months and years of faithful practice. Pope Leo XIV describes these as signs of authentic spiritual maturation. Deepened relationship with Mary develops as practitioners report feeling increasingly close to the Blessed Mother, not just during prayer but throughout daily life. This relationship becomes less devotional and more personal, resembling the relationship between a beloved child and a caring mother. Preparation for death and eternity becomes a natural result of this practice. People who maintain this discipline over years report decreased fear of death, increased longing for heaven, and greater peace about eternal questions. Enhanced discernment of spirits allows mature practitioners to more easily distinguish between divine inspirations and temptations, between authentic spiritual experiences and emotional manipulations. Testimonies of transformation. Pope Leo XIV has collected thousands of testimonies from around the world, each unique, yet sharing common themes of protection, healing, and spiritual growth. From the Philippines, Your Holiness, our entire extended family began sleeping with rosaries under our pillows after my grandmother suggested it. In the past year, we have experienced healing from generation-long patterns of addiction, depression, and family conflict. Our family reunions have changed from occasions of tension to celebrations of joy and faith. From Nigeria, Holy Father, as a nurse working night shifts, I was struggling with fear and spiritual darkness during my work hours. When I began sleeping with the rosary under my pillow during my day's sleep, everything changed. Not only did I sleep better, despite daytime noise, but I felt protected and peaceful during my night shifts. I have become a better caregiver, and several patients have asked me about the peace they sense in my presence. From Brazil, Pope Leo XIV. I am a single mother raising 3 children in a dangerous neighborhood. Since we all began sleeping with rosaries under our pillows, our home has become an oasis of peace. My children's grades improved, neighborhood violence seems to avoid our street, and I have strength I never knew I possessed. The Blessed Mother truly watches over our family. The ripple effect. Perhaps most remarkably, Pope Leo XIV has observed that this practice creates what he calls a ripple effect of blessing that extends far beyond the individual practitioner. Families, neighborhoods, parishes, and even entire regions experience spiritual renewal when significant numbers of people embrace this discipline. When enough souls place themselves under Mary's protection during sleep, Pope Leo XIV explains, entire communities begin to experience her maternal care. Crime decreases, family life strengthens, and the light of Christ shines more brightly in the world. A call to transformation. As we conclude this exploration of Pope Leo XIV's revolutionary teaching, we must ask ourselves, what would happen if every Catholic family embraced this practice? What if every bedroom became a sanctuary, every sleep a prayer, every night a preparation for eternity? Pope Leo XIV's call is clear. This is not merely a devotional practice. It is a weapon against the darkness, a channel of grace, and a pathway to transformation. In these times, when the forces of evil seem to grow stronger, God offers us simple, yet powerful means of protection. The Rosary under your pillow is one of His greatest gifts for our troubled age. The testimonies continue to pour in from around the world, each one confirming what Pope Leo XIV has proclaimed. When we place our most vulnerable hours under the protection of the Blessed Virgin Mary, our entire lives become transformed by divine grace. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, you face a choice. Will you continue to sleep spiritually defenseless, or will you embrace the protection, healing, and transformation that Pope Leo XIV offers through this ancient yet newly revealed practice? The Rosary awaits. The Blessed Mother stands ready. The transformation begins with a simple act of faith, placing those sacred beads under your pillow and entrusting your sleep to her maternal care. May the peace of protected sleep, the joy of spiritual transformation, and the blessing of divine protection be yours from this night forward. And may you become one of the countless souls whose lives bear witness to the power of sleeping under the mantle of Our Lady of the Rosary. As Pope Leo XIV blesses us, may the Blessed Virgin Mary guard your sleep, sanctify your rest, and prepare your soul for the eternal joy that awaits all her faithful children. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.